hour today, we're going to talk about central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. You've probably heard us talk about that before, and you might say, well, okay, but what's the issue? And we have posted a very good post by Representative Keith Self, because I heard the other day about his concern about the fact that there had been a promise to actually have language banning a central bank digital currency in what is called the Must-Pass Defense Authorization Act, and that did not happen. You might say, well, what's the big deal? After all, President Trump actually signed an executive order actually banning CBDCs. Well, let me remind you that the previous president, President Biden, signed an executive order encouraging the Federal Reserve to study the feasibility of digital CBDCs, and that's why we thought this was an important issue to actually be in the law. And so I wanted to see if we could get Representative Keith Self on, and since last hour we were talking about this idea of disobeying legal or illegal orders, maybe I'll ask him about that in just a few minutes, but as I mentioned just as we were going to the break last hour, an individual, Keith Self, has graduated from West Point, spent 25 years in the U.S. Army as a lieutenant colonel in Special Forces and Rangers, and is a representative of the 3rd Congressional District. So, Keith Self, welcome back to Point of View.
Thank you, Kirby. Great to be here with you.
Well, I've always appreciated you and your stand on so many issues. And when I found out that you were fighting to ban CBDCs, putting on a bill that is, of course, must carry, must pass, you were, I think, promised, were you not, that this would be the language that would be put in the Defense Authorization Bill? Tell us more, if you might.
Absolutely, Kirby. The exact language authored by the whip, Tom Emmer. We were promised in an office with the speaker, the whip, the leader, that it would be in the bill. And it didn't happen. And the Senate is the one that negotiated it out. But yes, this is vitally important. This is, in my mind, the last leg of the surveillance state. It's basically transparency of your financials to the federal government.
And I might just mention that I do have a booklet on privacy and surveillance. We're going to update it in 2026 because of so many other things that have happened. But let's explain that for just a minute, because first of all, with a CBDC, and again, a central bank digital currency, every transaction could be tracked by the government. And what we have posted here is an interview you did on Fox Business, reminding us that if you want to get a preview of what this would look like, go to China. Is that right?
Absolutely. China uses this exact tool, a central bank digital currency, to give their citizens what they call a social credit score. And a social credit score tells you how obedient you are to the government. So they tell you what you can and cannot purchase. They tell you how much you can spend. So China is the example today of just how dangerous this is. When the government has total transparency of your financials and your transactions and how you spend your money, it's dangerous. It is absolutely dangerous.
Let's mention another aspect of that. You can see I've studied this before. CBDCs could make it easy for the government to freeze financial resources or limit your purchases. In other words, okay, Keith Self, you've eaten too much meat. You're a good Texan, but sorry, you can't spend your money, your digital money, on meat. Or you've been driving around too much, meeting all your donors and all your supporters, so you can't get gas. These kinds of things, which seem hypothetical, all we have to do is see how they're already being implemented in other countries.
How about Canada? You may remember several years ago when the truckers had a protest against the COVID vaccine, and they actually froze the bank accounts of truckers that were involved. Canada, our northern neighbor, supposedly a democracy, not like China, supposedly a democracy, froze funding for the truckers that were involved. Again, a great example of just how dangerous government control of your money is.
And again, since you mentioned Canada, that's, again, some people might say, well, we're not China. We're a lot like Canada. How about Europe? Right now, there seems to be a lot of interest in Europe as well to having something that looks very much like a digital euro or something like that. And as far as I can tell, that's sort of a central bank digital currency, isn't it?
Well, it is, and frankly, I will tell you, the Bank for International Settlements, which is the bank for the central banks.
Yeah, BIS.
It's in Switzerland, BIS. That's right. Their 2021 study moved Europe toward that. In fact, it moved the world toward it. And now let's get to the United States itself, Kirby. The Boston Fed, in conjunction with MIT, did a study on CBDCs. Under the Biden administration. And they say we've got everything in place now, the cryptology, the everything that we need. The internet can support this. Atlanta has joined in. Cleveland has joined in. Atlanta Fed, Cleveland Fed. So there are already efforts. We already have the structure in place to do this, which is why it's so vital that we actually pass it into law. As you said before, the next president can simply undo this, the Trump ban.
I was just going to say, what can we do right now? Because I know I'll only get you on for another couple minutes, and it does seem to me that you know as well as I that we oftentimes have an action item. And is it too late for this, or is there some place maybe we can begin to generate some support on your behalf and on behalf of other people like Representative Emmert and, of course, Keith Self and others to actually get this passed, if not now, sometime in the near future?
Well, the promise was that if it didn't pass in this bill, it would be put on the next bill. So we need to keep it moving to the next must-pass bill. And frankly, if we do a reconciliation 2, we're going to find a way to put CBDCs on the next reconciliation bill. So we're already planning what the steps ahead are. So what I ask your audience to do is to start contacting your senators, your congressmen, congresswomen, to start encouraging them to support this, because this is, again, dangerous. You know, we deal with issues all the time that we think are important. This is actually dangerous to our citizens.
Well, again, we have a take action item. Right now we have one about government shutdowns, but I think we probably will do one on CBDCs. And so I know I only had a few minutes with you, but I wanted, first of all, for people to learn about this. Second of all, they can click on your picture there, and that will take them, of course, to keithself.house.gov. And then if they go behind a little further down, they can see the interview you did on Fox Business about this. And so you can get some of the information, but we'll try to pull some of that together and see if we can get behind your effort and the effort of a few other members of Congress to make that part of the legislation, because, as you said, it's nice to have an executive order. It'd be a lot better to have a bill that goes through Congress. So, Representative Keith Self, it is always great to talk to you, and I look forward to the next opportunity.
Thank you so much, Kirby. Look forward to it.